Hello, everyone. You're live with King Sigma, and today is November 29th, 2019, Black Friday. I hope everyone is doing well. We're getting a little bit of snow here in the Twin Cities, but it's nothing to worry about. The snow doesn't bother me as much as the wind chill that we get in late January and February. So if the temperatures are in the 20s, low 30s, and it's snowing, it's no biggie to me. I'd like to thank everyone for joining me. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving holiday. I know some of you may not celebrate the actual holiday in the American Euro sense, but it's just nice just to have a 4-day weekend for those that are lucky enough to not have to work on Thanksgiving weekend. And for those that are forced to work, I feel for you, but salute to you as well. I wanted to start with a little bit of breaking news from the week that you can use. In politics, Kamala Harris, Democratic campaign for the nomination at the Democratic Party is sinking by the day. It was just announced yesterday that she lost one of her top operational aides to Michael Bloomberg. And for you all that may not be aware, Michael Bloomberg has officially entered the race, and he was a 3-time mayor up there in New York, having been a member of the Independent Party, Democratic Party, and the Republican Party. So her operational aide, seeing that Kamala Harris's campaign is sinking, as she's actually in 4th or 5th place in the state of California, which is just horrible that in her own state, she's actually pulling at the bottom. And then in Iowa and South Carolina, she's also pulling at the bottom. So my thought is that Kamala Harris will be dropping out after the next debate, depending on how that goes. So I figure with her operational aide dropping out this week and joining Bloomberg for whatever the reason that she dropped out, not just because she's dropping in the polls, but also because since it's unlikely that she's going to be able to reposition herself, because back in the summer, she was actually considered top 3 in the Democratic Party for that nomination when she was pulling in at 20%. But Tulsi Gabbard brought that to an end. So it looks like her aide saw the opportunity that whether Bloomberg wins or not, he's paying top dollar. I mean, he's already spent, I heard, $5 million just in 1 week on his online ads. I even saw him on my social media on an ad. So that was probably not just a long-term move for believing that Bloomberg's going to win, but because that's where the money's at right now. And also in politics, the week started off on a bad note for Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, when he was actually hit real hard in a very searing article from the writer Michael Harriot over at The Root. The title of the article was Pete Buttigieg is a lying motherfucker. So that was actually the title of the article, and that happened on Monday the 25th. And since then, it looks like Buttigieg has called the writer Michael Harriot to, I guess, give his side of the story on, why he has the white male privileged view of the world that he does. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're talking about a guy who he's an older millennial. He grew up in a upper middle class family. He's from down there, Indiana, I believe. He went to private schools. He's done the private school thing his whole life. And when you have individuals like that who are out of touch with the working class in their own ethnic group, let alone trying to make comments on what's going on with the working class among the Native Black American population, you're going to get yourself in trouble every time. So when you do that kind of pandering, it's almost guaranteed to blow up in your face. But at the same time, this is the climate that the Democratic Party has created for themselves by betting the house on identity politics. And eventually, identity politics will destroy itself as each group becomes more and more tribalistic, because that's what's being encouraged by the Democratic Party, because they believe that that's the best way for them to win. I guess we'll see next year. But yeah, so Pete Buttigieg, he got himself in some hot fire. But at the end of the day, his support amongst Black Americans is only 0% right now. So I don't think it's any way for him to really get out of that. But that's the situation he found himself in to end this week. Over in the NBA, in sports, the Milwaukee Bucks, the hometown team, they're currently leading the Eastern Conference with a 15-3 record. In the Western Conference, the Los Angeles Lakers are at the top with a 16-2 record. Whereas I think that the Los Angeles Clippers are going to be the Western Conference representative in the NBA championship, but that's just my prediction. But right now, Los Angeles Lakers is holding it down. In the NFL, one of the teams that I love to hate, New England Patriots, they're leading the AFC right now with a 10-1 record. And I would say that the New York, the Patriots, the Duke Blue Devils, and the San Antonio Spurs are teams that I always root against. I don't care if they win the championship. I don't care how they're doing. I like to see them lose. I've always been more for the underdog. So in the NBA, unfortunately, I'm a Knicks fan. Always been a Knicks fan, and they suck as usual. But over in the NFL, I've always been a Chicago Bears fan and a Raiders fan, and they suck too. So I'm not having a good year in sports right now. And just some news from around YouTube, in this free-thinking Black man space. I got wind that the Good Soldier, Kid Organic, his main channel got terminated by the usual suspects. And we already know around here that they keep an ongoing tab on the free-thinking brothers in regards to, us putting these kind of messages out there that question the status quo and the mistreatment and abuse of American Black men at the hands of society at large, and then specifically amongst our own male and female counterparts. So the usual suspects, as I say all the time, you got the Black girl magic feminists, the Me Too misandrists, the Black women first drones, the genocide warrior class, the white cooks, and the white male worshipers. And they all work together to try to do whatever they can to stop this message from getting out. But it's too late. And we're going to continue to get this message out. But luckily, I heard that Kid Organic, he got another backup channel, and I believe it's called Organic The Truth. But you can look for him in YouTube, just search Kid Organic, and that channel comes up. So salute to that brother. I had checked out his new backup channel, and he had a story that was interesting to me in regards to the white male worship cults or whatnot. A couple weeks back, I did a story, and one of the video clips that I used was a story of this, basically decently attractive Black woman. And she was like a caregiver for this white male who was born with no thighs. And she said she was in love with the guy. So I don't remember which video it was, but I had talked about this trend in, decent Black American women hooking up with the bottom quarter of the white male dating pool. And we call them the Bottom-Shelf Brad clan around here. But he did a story. It was a different story. And in his story, there was a guy who's in a wheelchair, and he's like a quadriplegic, and I believe he has no sensation below the waist. But I'm not going to go into deep into that story, but I do recommend that you guys go check that out. And also around this area, the brother Brian Solange is holding it down over there at BitChute and Black Avenger. He currently has this whole series, documentary series going on about ghetto gaggers. And I definitely recommend you go check them out. And as usual, go check out The Rabbit Hole if these sort of stories that really do a good job of dismantling this age-old narrative of the queen of the damned as the most loyal woman. There's a narrative that's sold to us American Black men that the most loyal woman is the queen of the damned. And we all know that that is false because of these stories that we have coming out every single day. And that leads us to today's story, which comes to us from California. And this is more of a throwback. And shout out to the good brother Lion. He sent me this story this week. And I felt that, you know what, it's the end of the year. It's a time to reflect. And even though it's a throwback story, I thought it would be nice to, just go ahead and do a little bit of commentary on the story because I found it to be telling. Because one of the storylines that I hear a lot lately is that you'll have these white male worshipers and the cult of Bottom-Shelf Brad. One of the things that they'll say is that, oh, well, that's a new thing. This is something that just came about in like 2019, 2018, that these American Black women are chasing after the Swirl Mountain. That's one of the recent, moving the goalpost kind of storylines that I've been hearing over the last few months. So they'll say that, well, this is a response to, Patrick Patterson and different things like that. This is something that's really new. No, it's not. Talking to the OG BGS Ibmore, and he really gave me some good information because I'm going to be honest, as an older millennial, I do have kind of a romantic view of the past when it comes to the relationships between the Native Black American man and his female counterpart. I kind of romanticized it a little bit. I felt like, man, back in the silent generation, the GI generation, there was this, very strong Cosby-like relationship between Black men and Black women. But he provided the evidence showing that, different sociologists, different writers like W. Du Bois, E. Franklin Frazier, and myself, I added the fact that Booker T. Washington, they all talked about the dysfunctional culture that has been a part of the relationship between your average Native Black American man and his female counterpart. And so all we're doing is using this technology to bring what has mostly been hidden from view out into the public square. And I really believe that the Black men that built up Black Manosphere 1.0 and 2.0 need like a Medal of Honor. They give Medal of Honors all the time. But I think some kind of medal needs to be given from Barack Obama if he was in office, Donald Trump, and whoever the next president is, to the men that really did a good job of bringing these kind of storylines and narratives out into the public square. And again, the usual suspects do not want those stories out there. But now, brothers are building their own blogs. You have Black Avenger doing streaming now. I'm seeing more and more Black men that are going over to BitChute and creating their own independent blogs that are pushing these same stories regarding the 9 areas of human activity and where your Black man stands moving forward, because that's what's important. The historical perspective is critical, but it's really about where we're going to go from here. And I think it's important that we put these stories out here and we continue to build this digital archive and database so that in the future, when many of us move on to other things, I'm one of the people that does this on a casual basis whenever I just get a feeling or someone sends me a story that I just have an opinion on. But when other waves of Black men come up from the Zennials and longer, they need to have a digital archive that they can point to when they get hit with these kind of stories that have been used against Black men forever, where they keep trying to tell you that something is true that's not true. So in this story, you see the headline, and this is from the news magazine OC Weekly out there in Orange County, California. And, let's look at the headline. This is a white-owned, newspaper. And it says, white supremacist jail inmate, Black Orange County Sheriff's deputy gave me an STD. I mean, you would have thought this was a title from The Onion. This reeks of a Dave Chappelle special. This is like something that you would see on a comedy skit, man. This is something you would see on a comedy skit. Black Orange County Sheriff's deputy gave me an STD. So I'll just read like the first paragraph to you. So that young lady that you see right here, at the time she was 29 or 30 years old. Now she would be around 37, 38. But that was the former deputy of Orange County Jail. And her name was Jennifer McClain. Jennifer Tamara McClain. And it says, there was a point last year when it looked as if Barack Obama's post-racial world had a chance even here in Orange County, the one-time heart of the John Birch Society. White supremacist hoodlum Christopher Roger Brown thought that he'd found secret but true love with Jennifer Tamara McClain, a Black sheriff deputy. So Jennifer Tamara McClain was actually an American Black woman that was working down there at the Orange County Men's Central Jail. And this is what really stood out to me. And again, shout out to the brother Lion for sending me this story. I never heard of it, but I know that there's hundreds and hundreds of stories like this that have been hidden, and we're going to get through these stories over the next year or so. So it says, while in custody for a hate crime related robbery of a Black man in Costa Mesa, Brown claims McClain repeatedly engaged in immensely satisfying sexual affairs with him. But nowadays, Brown, a skinhead who had a pro-Nazi 88 tattooed on his chin, is outraged, and not because he presumably isn't getting any more jailhouse nookie and, slave cosplay nookie. He thinks the deputy used his male equipment merely as a method to stupefy his normally clean and keen senses as a route to gain law enforcement intelligence on gang activities inside Orange County and amongst his own group called the Skins. So this dude was a Nazi, like literally a neo-Nazi, and he was actually at the time incarcerated because he had committed a hate crime and robbed some American Black men. So it says, worse, Brown claims that McClain left him with a frightening and permanent memory of their illicit tryst, an STD. Uh-oh. See, this skinhead, Brown, Christopher Brown, the skinhead, he has not had a chance to listen to the brothers in these spaces who have been telling you all that, according to the CDC, half of all American Black women have herpes. That's just one of the STDs that half of them have. That doesn't include all the other ones. You know what I'm saying? So it didn't specify in the article which STD she gave him, but he did end up suing her. That's why it got so interesting. So it wasn't just the case of her getting fired, losing her deputy license or whatnot. He actually, as a prisoner, ended up filing a civil rights lawsuit against her as well. And in the lawsuit, some of the claims that he made was that Deputy Jennifer McClain put my life in danger to further her own career and indulge her sexual proclivities. So he was saying that she had like a lot of strange sex things that she was into. Now, remember, this dude is locked up in the jail, and she's working at the jail in the intake center. And usually with the intake center, people that are locked in that area, they're not really long-term prisoners. They're usually in there like less than a month, waiting for court or whatever it may be. But it says that she also gave me an STD, which puts my health at risk. So that was his first three claims. Then he also claimed that McClain used him as a deceitful relationship to gain information and intelligence on other jail inmates and the activities and gang activities. And she also was looking for her own sexual gratification. Now, this is coming from the lawsuit that he filed in California. And he says he claimed that the deputy, whose boss was also a female, the sheriff Sandra Hutchins, allowed deputies like Jennifer McClain to engage in these kind of sexual activities for pleasure and also intelligence without proper oversight and training. So he actually named the head sheriff, which is also a female, in the suit as well, saying that she was encouraging this kind of behavior where they use the prisoners as like sexual utilities, and at the same time also use them for law enforcement intel. But in this space, we talk a lot about what would the world look like when you have the female supremacy that the gynocracy is pushing its hardest for here in 2019. Now you getting this from a neo-Nazi, a skinhead, who was incarcerated at the time for robbing a black man and being also charged with a hate crime. That's who this is coming from, who is engaged in a consensual relationship with an American black woman who technically is only consensual because he said it. But if he had not himself said it was consensual, he'd also have another lawsuit because she also had power over him. And we've learned a lot about this through Me Too. One of the things that we hear in the Me Too witch hunt, we hear a lot about how, well, this woman was engaged in a sexual relationship with this man who was her boss or who was one of her colleagues or someone that happened to just be in a position higher than her. Now, even though the woman will say, well, it was consensual, but I only did it because he was my boss and I felt that if I didn't have sex with him, he would fire me or he would deny me some kind of promotion or whatever. But we over here understand that that's just hypergamy doing what hypergamy does. So in this situation, you have a group of female deputies and sheriffs that are accused of running some kind of like a sexual ring in the prison where they're using the prisoners for sex and they're in this position of power over them. And I just find that interesting that we all haven't heard about this story, because I can almost guarantee if there was a prison or a jail center somewhere in America run by black men and Latinos and other men, and they were having sex with all the female inmates, those guys would be brought up on the worst kind of charges. There would be no questions about it. It wouldn't be hidden somewhere in like some second or third rank newspaper. It would be right there on CNN. They would be doing a surviving male-led prisons type documentary on it. So we already know that. But this is kind of like what he was saying, and he was banging the chick. That's what stood out to me too, is that he was the one that ended up snitching. See what I'm saying? That's what was so fascinating about the story. It was actually the inmate, Christopher Roger Brown, who, after engaging in sex with this woman for several months, who reported it to an officer or whoever it was that he reported to in the prison, but it was him. So, one of the things that the usual suspects, they like to pedestalize the male man. So something that a lot of black men have been trying to tell the white male worshiper in this space is that, yeah, it's sure the male man will gag you. He will have sex with you, but the majority of American white men are not trying to wife you females up, man. And that's telling, because I've been making the argument that the more I look into these cases, I noticed that the trend is that these male men can pretty much, even if they're in the bottom quarter of their own dating pool, the type of men that the male woman does not want, they can hit real high within the Black American dating pool in terms of the top 50% of the queens of the damned. So just keep that in mind, that every time you see me do an entry in the Surviving Bottom-Shelf Brad series, I'm attempting to dismantle and add refutation to this whole the most loyal woman narrative. That's my only purpose, is forever reporting on these stories, because I need the free thinking brothers to be free, to know that the world is your oyster and it's nothing stopping you but this false sense of race loyalty that many of you still have. And I get it. I really do get it, because my mom, she performed that kind of black girl magic feminism on me as well. She wasn't as bad as some of these other women in this space, but she, initially when she found out I was dating women of different ethnicities, she wasn't like cheering the shit on, you know what I'm saying? But she eventually accepted it for what it is. But it's important that we show this hypocrisy and that we show the double standard. There's always this narrative of that the American black man isn't protecting me. He is in providing for me and all these different things. But almost in every story, like the disability cases that we talked about and the one that Kid Organic talked about, the white boy and the Mayo man himself said that the black female that he was in the relationship with was taking care of him. They said it themselves, and this was the disabled Mayo man. So if the disabled Mayo man can get a fairly attractive native ABW, then what the hell can everyday Waldo and Chad do? See, that's what's so amazing about these stories, is that these are just the bottom quarter, bottom shelf Brads that are reporting these things, snitching and telling on the white male worshiper. He's doing that. It's not us. He's doing that. He's saying that, man, I'm engaging in all this sex with these women, and it's so much pussy being thrown at me, I don't know what to do with it. Because that was the case of the white boy that we used in a prior case study, where he was saying that he's tired of the ABW offering him sex all day. He's tired of being treated as a sexual utility, and that he's tired of them throwing themselves at him. So we know where this comes from. It's just that now you have the brothers like David Carroll, Kid Organic, and Brian Solange, myself, and others just highlighting the stories that are reported. And again, I said reported. So if we keep getting these very odd stories that are always so dysfunctional in the news, but yet the white male worshiper herself says that it's the thinking black men. It's the native black American man that's banging all these other ethnicities. See, I dispute that, and I disagree. Sure, it is true that the native black American man has a lot of success with other races of women. This is true. But what is not stated is that the only reason that those black men have a higher marriage rate is because the type of women that they're dealing with in their pool, they're not doing it on a fetish basis. They're doing it because they're vibing with those women, and those women are bringing the kind of feminine demeanor and cooperation and attractiveness that that man desires. That does not mean that you're going to marry every woman that you're having sex with. But what it does mean is that if you're vetting the kind of women that you're dealing with based off those traits versus her race, you're going to have a higher chance of finding a woman that may be in a committed relationship with you, or that you might want to marry. Some brothers still want to get married, some don't. But that's the difference. Whereas when it comes to the queen of the damned, she is actually choosing these dudes strictly off their skin complexion, strictly off their race. This is sick, man. So we have a situation here with one of these quote unquote highly educated queens of the damned. You know, they love to throw their accreditation in your face. They love to throw their job status in your face. They love to throw, I went to this school or that school, I work here, that, right? She went through all that education, all that training. Now, I'm not familiar with the procedures out there in California. I don't know what process you go through to be a deputy out there, but I know out here, you can't just become a deputy. It's not like going to work at McDonald's and nothing like that. You got to go through some red tape. You got to do like a physical training. You got to go through a fingerprint background check in many states. You got to go through a state level background check. That's just the background check. So you got to go through the state, county, and usually FBI fingerprinting if you're going to be working in law enforcement. So you got to get through that. Then you usually got to do some kind of 1 year or 2 year program in many places. Now, I know that there are some states where you can become a deputy or police officer without having any kind of 2 year degree or whatnot. But I know in my state, I believe that you have to at least have a 2 year degree. And specifically, they've set up programs like that for you at the community colleges to become an law enforcement officer, state trooper, or a correctional officer. So this woman actually went through some things to become a deputy. But after 5 years of working as a deputy sheriff down there in Orange County, and I know that Orange County is one of the richer areas of California. So she had a good position. She was there 5 years, probably was about to get promoted. But that white Nazi, that bottom shelf Brad walked in there with that white Pookie thug passion, with the Nazi tattoos. He had Nazi tattoos on his face, on his arm. He had the 888 and all that shit that the Nazis be having on him. Man, when he walked through there, it didn't matter that she had been working there 5 years. It didn't matter that she went to school to become a deputy. It didn't matter that she got to keep herself in shape and all that. She was doing all that to be with that mailman Nazi. Okay? That's what she was doing all that for. That's what they mean when they talk about educated and strong. They are presenting themselves as educated and strong to that bottom shelf Brad, because you can see it in the results that they keep getting. Every time that they attempt to climb Swirl Mountain, the graveyard around Swirl Mountain grows. And we call that the graveyard of Swirl Mountain. Each one of the stories that I report is based on a news report. That's what I like to talk about, something that actually you can prove that happened without my opinion. So here we have a situation of a prisoner on Swirl Mountain Love Nest who ended up snitching on the black female deputy that he was banging. And in the story, another thing that stood out to me is that the sheriff in charge of Deputy McClain, she mentioned that the deputy, you know, that was being arrested at her work site had a little young child. Now, they didn't say if the Nazi prisoner was the father of the child. They just said it. It was very strange how they just wrote it in the article. They just said, yeah, oh yeah, and McClain has a young child. It's like, okay, so are you saying that the Nazi Christopher Roger Brown, who just ruined her whole career based on her own consensual sex with him, which was actually predatory sex on her part, that they may have a kid too? So you dudes is out there talking about you select, nah, select. Man, I'm looking, man. A strong case is being made. The Brother Kid Organic calls him Mr. Clean. I just stick with Bottom Shelf Brad. I think that Bottom Shelf Brad and Mr. Clean and the mailman is making a strong case that he may be more select than you. So you think that the thug passion is something, but I think that that white trash, white pookie magic man passion may have you on this one. You might be checkmated on this one. So I need to check. The select brothers got to, you know, do some explaining on why stories like this keep happening, because this ain't no ugly female. She ain't fine or anything like that, but she's decent. If she had her mind right, a lot of brothers in this space might, you know, fuck with her because, you know, she got some stuff going for herself. She ain't ugly. But then the women that you'll see in this space, you know what I'm saying, they're bringing you the bottom quarter for the black men, and you're supposed to pedestalize those kind of American black women. But he can get the queen of the damn in the top half for sure with no problem. So this dude then walked up into the Orange County jail, Nazi'd up, a member of the skinhead gang, and whatever he whispered in her ear is stronger than the strongest game that our best dating coaches over here can spread and share with you. There's no question that we Native Black American men tend to have a lot more charm and a lot more charisma than most races. It's just something that we're gifted with. But man, I'm telling you, you don't need all that shit when you're born a male man. When you're a male man, you don't need game. When you're born a male man, you don't need to be born with thighs. You don't even need to even be able to walk. You don't have to do anything but be a male man. You don't have to have any kind of income. You don't have to have any kind of status. As long as you are a male man, you have a power and a comparative advantage over the rest of us that, unfortunately, me being a Native Black American man is something he can do that I can't do. I can't give her that mulatto baby, man. I can't give her that biracial child. And that's what I've come to understand about that. That's the difference between myself and the male man. And in terms of the maltreatment that is received by Native Black American men, by the female that's supposedly your counterpart. I know a lot of brothers like say our women. I don't use the term our women because I have no authority, no jurisdiction over any of these Native Black American women. So they are my female counterpart by law. But when it comes down to who she actually respects and who she actually believes that is superior, she believes that that male man is superior to you and I. That's why you and I look at this case and we look at the situation with Jennifer Tamara McClain and we say, why would a 30-year-old woman who's been working in a pretty good damn job with such high vetting standards give up a great career to be with an incarcerated Nazi? Because you don't understand the relationship between the male man and the queen of the damned. They have such a deep history going back to the daughters of the trade and such a committed allegiance to each other that there are not very many duos in the history of cinema, politics, business, or any other areas of the human activity that you could think of. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, LeBron, Anthony Davis. You could see Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I don't care. Dwayne Wade and Shaq. You can go through Tom and Jerry. We can go down the list. Batman and Robin, whoever. There is no greater allegiance and commitment that we've ever come across that can match the commitment that the mailman gets from the white male worshiper. And some of you are like, no, I don't believe you. You're lying. I don't want to believe this. But I don't know how many more stories that we have to continue to put out there from the white mainstream news showing you that her commitment to that mailman, 90% of them, I'm just speaking to 90% of them, will always be stronger than whatever commitment that you think that you're getting from her. You're the backup man. See, you thought that he was the side piece. No, you the backup man. You was the backup man the whole time. You just didn't know you were a backup man. You didn't even know that she was in the shadows doing the ghetto gagging thing. I know I didn't. Yeah, I'm admitting. I was brain dead. I didn't know how deep this rabbit hole really was. But it's those other brothers that have preceded me in these kind of conversations that have educated me. So I'm going to keep adding to this. And I hope that other brothers will continue to add to this as well. And we're going to keep hitting all 9 areas of human activity. Hey, but shout out to the chat. Shout out to the viewers. I see the homie Man of Tomorrow in here. You know, salute to him. He's doing great work on his channel. Y'all go check him out. Sigma Jones, I see you in there. Nutso. Seth Morris. Evan Duncan, SC. Omega Dreads. John Storm. Prince Jason. Mike V, man. Just shout out to all y'all. I hope that y'all having a good Black Friday. But, you know, what else that was interesting about that story to me was that she was placed under arrest by her own deputy colleagues of the Orange County Jail. So she reported to work that day like everything was good. So she'd been banging this Nazi for like 3 months in the prison. No one caught her. She had the camera. She had control of the camera. So she turned the cameras off. But little did she know that she was walking into her last day at work because the Nazi white mailman had snitched on her and said that he was being sexually abused. He literally said that she was taking advantage of her position of power over him to sexually abuse him. So she actually ended up getting, so just imagine coming into work, right? For any of you that worked in law enforcement. So you guys are the ones that are supposed to be protecting and serving. You're supposed to be the ones that have this power over these inmates, and you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do by your state's constitution or whatever. This woman comes into work that day. You know how they walk around, haughty. The daughters of the trade are definitely haughty, arrogant, and looking down on the other black men working there. I bet you the whole time she was banging a Nazi dude, she was looking down on her black male colleagues, telling that they ain't shit. They can't protect and serve. They can't do the job as good as she can do it. I bet you there was at least one black male officer there that was just laughing his ass off. I bet you he was happy to put the handcuffs on her, man. So just imagine the hardy daughters of the trade. She walking in to work, and the dude done snitched on her the night before. She thinking everything is going to be clean and crispy. That's what she thought that day. Got her uniform freshly starched. You know what I'm saying? Taking her little medication for her STD or whatever. Probably on Tinder or something like that, looking for the next mailman to get with outside of the prison. Well, she came in and they arrested her and took her to the ladies' facility down the street. I mean, you just can't make this shit up, man. So eventually, he actually ended up suing her in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. And if you guys want to look at the actual filing and you want to pay the price, because it's like an 8-page filing on his part, motion or whatever. And that case is 8:2013 CV 00345. And that's for the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. And the title on the suit is Christopher Roger Brown versus Jennifer Tamara McClain. So that's the lawsuit that he filed. So not only did she ended up losing everything, but she also ended up getting sued by this white boy. And probably because of his relationship with her, he was able to get out of prison early. But he had a long history of his Nazi, network or whatever. He was in a Nazi gang, skinhead. So he had a lot of charges against him. So it was like, it wasn't like this was his first time. It's just that it was so ironic that he was actually in jail at the time that he's banging out one of the queens of Americana. he was in there for a hate crime against a Native Black American man. That's what really hit me about that story. But I wanted to share something with you all because, we try to keep the information flowing in this space. And I want to share some with you about ethics, right? Because this is really a question of ethics. That's what we're talking about here. So one is asking, man, what does a deputy got to do? So I've already told you that deputy is not no easy job to get. You got to go through a certain kind of process to become a deputy, man. And she's actually been a deputy at that time for 5 years. So she was, she was going in the right direction. But all it took was a white Nazi to walk through that prison, and she got weak in the knees, and she said, I'm gonna throw, and she had a young child at the time. So she didn't care that she had a new child. She didn't care about the job. She wanted that white seed. She said, I'm willing to risk it all for that white seed. And I keep telling you, brothers on this space, it's not an easy thing to accept. It's really not. That your seed is not as valued by the queen of the damned as that white seed. And you kind of see that with the unraveling of Meghan Markle. And I'm keeping an eye on that. I got a feeling that Meghan Markle is going to become the peak in the stories of in the series of the surviving Bottom-Shelf Brad. But on the screen, I hope that you all can see. So I'm looking at the history of like deputies and the requirements and all that, and I came across the oath that is given to deputies, law enforcement, and public officials out there in California. So this is straight from the California Constitution itself. So this is Article 20, miscellaneous subjects, section .1 dash section .23. And this is actually an Article 20 that's been adopted since 1879. So this ain't like no new thing. The kind of standards and the oaths and the ethics that you have to have as a deputy and law enforcement public official, it's a known thing. It requires a lot of ethical standards. We know that there's a lot of corrupt individuals in these positions of power, because power does tend to corrupt, and absolute power does tend to corrupt absolutely. But these are the kind of oaths that they take. So I'm gonna go ahead and read that oath to you that Deputy Jennifer Tamara McClain had to swear to become a deputy. So I blank do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. And I do further swear or affirm that I do not advocate, nor am I a member of any party or organization, political or otherwise, that now advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of the state of California by force or violence or other unlawful means, that within the 5 years immediately preceding the taking of this oath or affirmation, I have not been a member of any party or organization, political or otherwise, that advocated the overthrow of the government of the United States or the state of California by force or violence or other unlawful means. That is the oath that's given to police officers, law enforcement officials, and deputies like Jennifer McClain and other politicians or whatever, and public officials. That's the oath that they take. You see what I'm saying? That is the oath that they take to become a deputy and a sheriff, because you have so much power over those things that we as members of this society value: our property, our life, and our bodies. Those are sacred in societies that have a constitution, like the American Republic. Now, I read that oath not just to let you know what Jennifer McClain had to swear to her constitution and her state constitution, but also because we talk a lot in this area about sexual contracts, social contracts, and the agreement that exists between the free-thinking black men and the queen of the damned. There is none. There isn't one that exists. Even in our general American society right now, the dominant society has no sexual contract. And the social contract that exists is that U.S. Constitution and the state constitution in every state. And I always encourage my brothers to be very up on their legal game, to read these oaths, to read their constitution, to read your state constitution, learn the laws. But in terms of like in Black America, there ain't no agreement in place between the Native black man and the Native black woman, and how we're going to treat each other, and how we're going to have at least a minimum amount of respect. There's formal agreements and there's informal agreements. We don't even have an informal agreement of how we as Native black men and the Queen of the Dam are supposed to treat each other, and how we're supposed to at least protect the image of Black Americans at large. I'm big on that. I'm big on protecting the image of the Black American ethnic lineage at large. I do my best never to do another crime against another Black person unless I had to defend myself. I can't bring myself to assault or kill another Native Black person unless it was in self-defense, which I have the right to have. That is one of the rights of our top 10 that shall not be infringed for a reason, the right to self-defense. But outside of that, I can't see myself doing crimes against other Native Black people. And part of that is also how we carry ourselves in public and the way that we carry ourselves when no one's looking either. Here's a woman who was in a public job. She thought no one was looking because she had control of the cameras. And the same mailman that she was giving that box to, when he found out that he was burning, his ass was on fire. And we know how many of these mailmen is carrying that package, because we got Jason Roger Pope and Gentry Crotch Burns that were in just in the first 5 entries in the Survivor Series. And they all burning. Now you got another mailman burning. He's a Nazi. This man is a Nazi, incarcerated for robbing a Black man and charged with a hate crime. And I bet you as soon as he was released, he had Queens of the Dams all in the hood checking for him, the same way they were checking for Jason Roger Pope. This is what you're dealing with, man. So when you talk about a gynocracy, when you talk about female supremacy, what you're talking about is a social disorder. What you're talking about is a shredding of any kind of social contract. What you're talking about is an open human sewer. That's what it becomes. Your society cannot survive because oaths, constitutions, contracts mean nothing to the gynocracy. Contracts don't have no place in no gynocracy. They wake up saying that I'm entitled to whatever I wake up feeling that morning. Whatever they wake up that morning feeling, that should be a reflection in society. If they're angry, everyone else should be miserable. If they're happy, everyone else should be happy. If they're in trouble, someone else is going down for their fuckery. This is the way that the Queen of the Dam think. And that's why any society that's built on a gynocracy will eventually crumble on itself, like a controlled demolition. And it's only a controlled demolition because you and I sit on the sidelines and let this shit ride. We've been letting it ride forever. But luckily, those that came before me over the last 12 years have been taking little, making little campaigns, little battles against these false narratives and bringing nothing but facts and data to dismantle this gynocracy. So as far as free thinking brothers are concerned, the gynocracy won't exist in our world moving forward, because I'm bringing you the information that you need when you see these women talking about protect and provide. And we saw that with the Patrick Patterson blowback, because you had the Queen of the Dam getting angry at him over his comment that they have an attitude like a bulldog. He wasn't lying about that. So he's at the top of the food chain in terms of the dating market. And with the get the bag prostitutes, they look at him as the main course. That's why they're angry. So if it was your Black dude that's like a janitor somewhere, they wouldn't be all that angry. But the fact that a multimillionaire basketball player has made himself unavailable to the Queen of the Damned, that again, like I said, because they have no constitution within Black society, that's a crime against the gynocracy. The gynocracy is a tyranny. And it's ruled by the gynocratic elites in their group. And that just means that you're a Black woman. Those are the rulers of the gynocracy. If you're born as a Black woman, you are by birth, you have a divine right to rule and make up the rules as you go. And that's what makes it a tyranny. So Patrick Patterson, he didn't know that he had broken the law, because there is no such thing as a written law in the gynocracy. The laws of the gynocracy are based on feelings and their self-claimed entitlements. So they deserve protection, not because they're a respectful woman, not because they're cooperative, not because they're feminine or that a sexual contract exists, but the very fact that they were born a divine, dark-skinned woman specifically, and definitely that gives them a right of rulership over you as a free-thinking brother, a free-moving brother. Patrick Patterson ran up against that when he made the comment he made. So he chose a peach skin. He chose a male woman. That's his choice. And he was tired of being attacked by, you know, the usual suspects. So, you know, I can't believe he got a white girl crowd, right? And then, of course, the genocide warrior class and the Hotep communist drones. All of these people in his, I don't believe he should have responded to it, because you're living your best life, man. Just be good. But he felt that he needed to respond. He was frustrated. And then this is why he got the blowback he got, because he said that they had the attitude of a bulldog. But I say, and I've came up with this motto, I say, she's a bulldog to thee, but a kitten to he. And we know that thee is the thinking brothers and that he is that male man. See, she's only a bulldog for you and me, but she's a fucking kitten. It don't matter who the male man is. He don't got to have arms, legs, a job, education, or anything. All he has to do is be a male man, and she's a damn kitten. So I think that what the Black Manosphere 1.0 and 2.0 and the free thinking brothers are doing today, we're giving you all your emancipation papers. And that's what they're angry about. U.S. thinking brothers are not supposed to be emancipated. That's not part of the deal. It's not part of the deal to be free and explore those options. And it's a specific reason why I decided to do this story that the brother Lion sent me, because not only because it's an entry into the Surviving Bottom-Shelf Brad series, but because it's about, you know, we're about to hit December 1st. And you know cuffing season is here, man. It's cuffing season. And some of you brothers got some of those Maylings, Ayanis, Jasmines, and Becky's about to blow you up in the next week. They're about to hit you. You know that you got one of these other ethnicities of women that's been choosing up on you. But you've been saying, nah, I'm not going to do it because I'm with the most loyal queen of the damn that history has ever seen. But see, you guys are mistaken. The loyalty that the queen of the damn has is not to you. It's to that mailman like Christopher Roger Brown. So, I mean, that's very telling. Very telling that loyalty is to Christopher Roger Brown. And when Tamara McClain took her oath, we already talked about the fact that she had to take an oath to swear by the U.S. Constitution and the state constitution that she would not do the things that she ended up being fired for. But within the department that she worked in as a sheriff, the Orange County Sheriff's Department, which was established in 1889, they've had a certain code that they force upon their deputies as well. So they have another oath that is sworn by their deputies. And their mission and core values, I looked that up, and it said that in Orange County Sheriff Department, their deputies are supposed to have the vision and live by the vision statement of your trust is our legacy. That's the vision statement for the OCSD. Just think about the irony of that. Your trust is our legacy. And here we got a Nazi banging out one of y'all queens of Americanda whenever she in at work, bringing him extra food in the prison, paying for his little weekly cart, putting money on his books. I mean, you can't make this shit up, man. You could write a great fiction novel and it couldn't match this, man. You got a queen of Americanda, educated, independent, and strong like a bulldog, getting banged out by a neo-Nazi under her care, feeding him. All the other prisoners can barely get a bologna sandwich, barely get a carton of milk. But this Nazi somehow got this woman coming through, banging him out and bringing him extra cookies, extra ham sandwiches, and sneaking shit in the prison for him. And he still snitched on her. So she violated the vision statement. She violated the mission statement, which says that the men and women of the Orange County Sheriff's Department are dedicated to the protection of all we serve. We provide exceptional law enforcement services free from prejudice or favor with leadership, integrity, and respect. So according to Deputy McClain, part of that law enforcement services means pussy, free pussy. Doesn't matter what your color your skin is or what you're locked up in. According to her, in the get the bag culture, enculturated prostitutes, hey, if you become a deputy and you're one of the queen of the damned, they take it upon themselves to give out free pussy as long as you're a mailman. As long as you're a mailman. If you happen to be a free-thinking brother, somehow you get accused of a crime at your job that you didn't even do, and you locked up, oh, you're not included on that list. So you're probably reading your story like, damn, one of you brothers out there is about to get evicted. You're probably dealing with some shit right now, criminal related, and maybe you got yourself a ticket that you didn't pay and you're about to spend the night in jail. And you reading the story like, man, I'm gonna try to bang the little black deputies here. They fucking know. Again, genetic diplomatic immunity, brothers. I keep trying to get this through your head. Genetic diplomatic immunity is one of the clauses that's in the unwritten constitution of the gynocracy. If you're a mailman, no rules apply, whether they be written or unwritten. So just keep that in mind. So again, McClain violated the vision statement, the mission statement, but the final question that we have is, did she also violate the core values of integrity without compromise? Check. Service above self? Check. Professionalism in the performance of duty? Check. Vigilance and safeguarding our community. So according to Deputy McClain, integrity, service, professionalism, vigilance, all of that has to do with getting banged out by mailman who happens to be a Nazi. I mean, you can't make this shit up. This is straight from the Orange County Sheriff Department's own employee manual. This is their employee manual. They claim that their vision statement is your trust is our legacy, and that those are their core values. And again, you hear all this talk about diversity, that, but here's the irony. We know that up in the state of Washington, one of the most liberal states in America, they overturned affirmative action this month to go into 2020. So thus supposed to be the Democrats, the liberals. Well, they overturned affirmative action. And every time a case like this comes up in the public, this gives them more of a shield to hide behind and to say, this is why we need to make it about character and merit and not color. And I'm cool with that. See, the one good thing about being a Native Black and American man is that we've been beaten down. We've been alienated and marginalized to such a extent that we've been forced to be very libertarian in our leanings. Yes, there are brothers that call themselves conservatives, Republicans, liberal Democrats. But the truth is that naturally a majority of Native Black American men are truly independents. We don't have anyone looking out for us. You know what I'm saying? So every time one of these queens of the dams does something like this, every time you have a Jason Roger Pope story, every time you have a Joe Morrissey story, and every time you have a story like this about Christopher Roger Brown, the Nazi swirler, this gives them more cover to overturn them affirmative action laws. Because then the other side that's against affirmative action just says, hey, you guys are doing all this hiring based off skin color. It's discriminatory. It's reverse racism. And that's why we have stories like this deputy swirling it up with the Nazi. Because you guys are putting these women in there, not because they're the most qualified, not because based on merit, you're putting them there because they were born with that box. And that's it. And this is the kind of results that you get from a meritless society. That's the argument that they will make. And it's a strong argument that's been made, and it's having a lot of success as we enter 2020. So it won't be but another year or so, maybe 16 months max, and the Supreme Court will have overturned affirmative action for good. So all these haughty daughters of the trade, like Jennifer Tamara McClain, who was sitting up there rolling her eyes at the black deputies, talking shit to the black deputies, she put a neo-Nazi prisoner who was her swirl lover above those black deputies and the reputations of other black cops that would come through, other black deputies, but specifically, she also harmed other black women that might come through. See, a deputy is not an easy job to get. It usually has great benefits. You know what I'm saying? Usually it has certain prerequisites and minimum requirements. And it ain't like you just walking up in there getting a job. So they will think twice about bringing in, one of the Sisters of Americana because of that. See, we don't want to talk about that. We want to act as if our individual decisions don't also have an impact on a group that's considered a often targeted group. So we already know that Black people are targeted. And every time one of us is accused of some kind of corruption, every time one of us is accused of some kind of crime, whether we did it or not, they're going to drag you. You're going to get dragged. It doesn't mean that there aren't Asian women doing the same thing. It doesn't mean that not white women doing the same kind of things. But somehow they do a better job of making sure that it does not hit the mainstream media. Whereas it seems like these American women just don't have the ability to keep it under wraps. And everyone's laughing at them. In the last story that I was talking about, you had one of the reporters, a male man, he was laughing at the story about Joe Morrissey. And every time you see one of these stories, these male men and a male woman are just laughing. So you got this Black girl magic feminist. They think that these people are laughing with them, but all they do is talk bad about them. All they do is laugh at them. And when they get in trouble, the knives come out. The knives come out. And that's why you have the Democratic Party supporting videos like that video that a lot of brothers have been sharing in this space called I Love You, Black Man. Yeah. The Democratic Party funded a group of American Black girl magic feminists called I Love You, Black Man. It's a 5-minute commercial. I hope that everyone in here has seen that commercial. I actually thought it was some Saturday Night Live Mad TV type shit when I saw it, but it was actually a real commercial. So I'm thinking to myself, like, man, a lot of these Black girl magic feminists are starting to feel the heat because with them what threw me off was the fact that these women gave up a triple minority status, man, to become part of the people of color group, Black, female, and that special protected group, Black female. They gave all that up thinking that Mylene, Marisol, Becky, and Jasmine was their friend. They put their gender before their ethnic lineage group. And now they're about to pay the price, boy. I bet you they was real hesitant to bring in another Sister of Americana after the embarrassment that she brought to the Orange County Sheriff Department. That's a very embarrassing thing, man. It's a bad look. And I've heard cases of like all kind of racism amongst the LA County and Orange County law enforcement ranks. I think the brother's name was like Christopher Dorner, the Black man that said he was being racially discriminated against out there at the Los Angeles Police Department. And he went on a revenge streak out there in California a few years back, if I got his name correctly, Christopher Dorner. So he talked about in his manifesto how much racism there is out there in the LAPD, Los Angeles County correctional facilities and all that. So it's hard for a Black American, Native Black American, to get one of those jobs. And the moment that you bring one of these Sisters of Americana up in there, the first thing she do is she's throwing that pussy around the Nazis. The same Nazis that she keeps telling you that you need to protect her from. I don't know who the psychologist was that has been studying gaslighting that wrote the greatest book on that theory of gaslighting. But you don't know gaslighting until you've lived as a Native Black man, a Black American man, and had to deal with the kind of gaslighting that is forced upon us by our designated female counterpart. They will literally come on here every day and tell you that you need to protect them from getting beat down by Bruce Leroy. They will tell you that you need to stop them from getting beat down by Habib. They will tell you all these stories on here crying you a damn river from here to Mississippi about how you need to protect them. But the whole time she got a penis in her mouth and she got a smartphone in the other hand, texting and YouTubing how you supposed to be protecting her from that male savior of hers. I mean, that's why this story stood out to me. Because since it was a couple years old, I was thinking to myself, we've seen the ghetto gaggers come to these spaces, right? The women that's getting ghetto gagged, smutted out for $300, $200. They come here, throwing a dashiki, go get a vag tightening or whatever they do. And then they come over here talking about black power, you need to protect me. We've seen the different white male worshipers breed with the male man. So they get the white seed, he kicks her out. He don't give a fuck about those mixed seeds. He sold those mixed seeds in slavery at one time. He don't give a fuck. He just wants some gutter sex, plantation sex, get the fuck out. And then she brings her breed, her biracial children that are seeded by the male man, but she wants the resources of the thinking black man to take care of those mixed seeds. And when you refuse to take care of those mixed seeds, she said, you're not providing for my biracial kids with the male man. I thought that was part of the deal. Don't you black men still play the role of cleanup man? Ain't no one ever played the role of cleanup man better than you. You feel me? So that's why they're upset, because in the gynocracy, it's not supposed to matter who her seeds are by. It's not supposed to matter that she has like a catalog of ghetto gagger videos. It's not supposed to matter that every male man from New York to San Francisco has tapped that ass all during Black History Month. None of that is supposed to matter. The native Black American man is the designated cleanup man. I'm sorry to tell you, Sisters of Americana, those days are over, man. Those days are over. We're going to highlight these stories. You're going to terminate our channels and we'll keep building more channels. You're going to try to silence us, we'll keep building more blogs. This conversation is going to be had as we go into 2020, because this is such a critical year for the Black collective. The die is already cast, most likely, for the majority of Black men and Black women in this country because of the betrayal of some American Black men, but very many Sisters of Americana. Outright betrayal of their ethnic lineage. And these stories will be told to brothers as a warning. Don't let them fool you with that race loyalty gaslighting. While she out here telling you about how she just now read the great stories of Marcus Garvey and she got the ISIS papers on her bookshelf. She just came back from an ADOS meeting or whatever. She's out there getting banged out by white police officers. She's getting shared by his brother who happens to be a Nazi. And then they're even bringing the grandfather in. They're literally bringing the Sisters of Americana into white male private spaces. And these dudes are judges, unemployed. They run the gamut, but they all have one thing in common. They're male men smutting out the Sisters of Americana. And you guys need to be hella aware of this. Because right now, at least one brother that's listening to me is dealing with a former ghetto gagger, a former white male worshiper, a woman that is in the DMs of the male man. Yeah, I know that's a head scratcher. Damn, she's fucking me though. Well, you just had Deputy McClain fucking a neo-Nazi. So what? I don't know what to tell you. Sex is one of those exceptions to the rule, I guess. I guess in the area of sex, they're willing to make exceptions as long as they can avoid marrying the person. So ghetto sex has a long history. Hey, shout out to you, brother, Dr. Phoenix. I see you in there. Dr. Phoenix says, isn't that what Lonnie Love was just saying? Oh, yeah. I heard about that Lonnie Love story from another brother. I don't know who Lonnie Love is, but I imagine that she must be some kind of celebrity if people are using her name. But as far as, like I said, I don't know. Dr. Phoenix probably wasn't here when I've added some more terminology to these free thinking brother dictionary. And one of those terms is genetic diplomatic immunity. So you have to put that under that rule and that term. So Lonnie Love can go and get a male man. Deputy McClain can swirl with a Nazi prisoner because in the Black gynocracy, the male man has genetic diplomatic immunity. His white seed, his white validation has a value that it doesn't matter if you're Barack Obama, that can't be matched. That's one of the reasons why Barack Obama never dated a native Black American woman until he was like 32 years old. And that happened to be the First Lady, Michelle Obama. She saw a good deal and she reluctantly, she got with him. She's like, oh, well, he's not male, man, but he's biracial, so we can make it work. But he never even had a native Black American woman until Michelle Obama. And it was a good political deal for them at the end of the day. So it was a good investment for both of them. But he probably wasn't her first choice. And she wasn't his first choice either in that case, but definitely she was probably looking for a male man herself. But yeah, so that's my commentary on the situation between Deputy McClain and Christopher Roger Brown. So, you know, Jennifer Tamara Brown, she was a deputy that got involved with a neo-Nazi. It cost her job. It cost her a law enforcement career. And according to the news reporters, she is alleged to have had a child with him, with the Nazi. And the Nazis still snitched on her. I mean, you just can't make this shit up, man. But it's right there. And ended up suing her for a violation of his civil rights. You just cannot make this stuff up, man. And I'm glad that these stories are finally hitting the mainstream. Black men have had to deal with these kind of baseless attacks, not based on facts, baseless attacks against their masculinity, against their identity, and undermining their status and movements in society for 40 years, man. And to hear BGS tell it, it's actually been going on 100 years. But I'm just going to go by, since 1965, how television and how media has been used as a ferocious weapon against the image of black men. So it's time to return the favor and to continue returning the favor. Continue fighting back every time they terminate, every time they censor. But they cannot. How do you censor the news? You can't censor the news. That's why I like reporting the news, because it's a fact. It's not my opinion. It's a fact. It's reported. The court records show the story. The prison records show the story. Every story I've reported is based on a criminal case so far. And I'm going to stick to cases, because you can't censor the news. You can't censor white zaddy and white mommy, though. See, that's the problem that they've run into. They were a artificially backed state, the black gynocracy. But now white zaddy and white mommy has found your replacement. She's about 5 feet tall, 95 pounds, dainty, feminine, and her skin is yellow. She's kind of sassy. She's about 5'2", 125 pounds, tight waist with a Spanish accent. Or she kind of looks like Meghan Markle, and she's sitting there in that group talking about gender first. And the whole time she's looking at you like, your days are numbered, Sisters of Americana. Yeah. Your replacements are here. They're here. And you are the one that provided them a red carpet entry into identity politics, into affirmative action, into an easy access to all those good government jobs, all those good corporate jobs that remain for non-white people. None of them are going to you. You can't look to the Native Black American man, because he has never depended on affirmative action for the last 25 years. You're the ones that talk about how much education you got, how many black judges was elected down in Texas, how many degrees were handed out to you, the most educated female counterpart to the male of her racial designation. You're the ones that brag about that and wave that flag all day. Black men are saying, I don't even need a college degree to win. I don't got to go get a PhD to win. I can become a Google scholar. I can become a Wikipedia scholar. I can use this great technology that's been passed down to me to educate myself. I'm more proud to be a self-educated, self-made man. He's not looking to the white dominant society to give him anything. He knows that when he walks into a job interview that he has the deck stacked against him. So he has to create a path for himself. So we're ready for this. We've been built for this over 3 generations. We ain't getting no help. Now, the queen of the damned, she's getting kicked off her throne. Let's see how she reacts to not being able to spit upon the heads of free-thinking brothers anymore. Let's see how she reacts as Marisol and Mei Ling and Becky sit around laughing at all her dysfunction being highlighted by the mainstream media every day. They kept it out of the media for three decades. But now that they've seen more and more black men waking up to the truth, they said, okay, fuck it, let's get in on the laugh too. But that's where we stand. So hopefully you guys got something out of this conversation. I really appreciate you all stopping in and sharing an hour or two with me. I'll read a couple comments before I dip up out of here. Just bought me some free trainers on Finish Line Black Friday. I'm real happy about that. I needed some new running shoes. Got a real good deal on a pair of free trainers, man. I was using some Hirachis, but I kind of, I've been running so much in 2019 that I wore them bad boys down. So I had to get me a pair of free trainers on this Black Friday deal. So let's see what some of you brothers got to say. But yeah, man, this story was brought to me by the brother Lion. And it's crazy story, man. That deputy story is crazy. I mean, I was thinking about Monsters Ball as I read that story, because Monsters Ball had a white correctional officer played by Billy Bob Thornton. And then Puffy was like the husband of Halle Berry. And he was the one that like flipped the switch to kill Puffy's character, the black inmate. And then he ended up banging out Halle Berry. And it felt like such a far-fetched film. But the makers in Hollywood, they know the deal. The elites in Hollywood, they know what they're talking about. It's not far-fetched that the mailman could bang out the wife or the sister or the girlfriend of one of the people that they have incarcerated or on death row in their prisons. It's not far-fetched. That's what this whole story about Deputy McClain is about. The fact that it didn't matter that he was a Nazi. It didn't matter that he was locked up for a hate crime against a Native American black man. It didn't matter that he was a multiple felon. None of that mattered. To get the Mayo seed, she'll go through the Mojave Desert. She will swim the Atlantic Ocean. She will climb Mount Everest to get to that fucking white seed, man. I'm dead serious. Hey, I agree with you, humble servant. When I saw that Monsters Ball, I said, this is some sick stuff, man. Who could even think of making a movie like this? And I mean, the crazy part about it, allegedly, Billy Bob really banged her in the movie. Because he's a method actor, they say. Now, I don't know if that's 100% true, but they claim that Billy Bob really had sex with her in the movie, man. I don't know if it's true or not, but I have heard them say that to make the role more realistic, that he actually had sex with her, though. I mean, and remember, see, here's the crazy part about that movie. That was at a time when every black man in Generation X was fiending for Halle Berry. Even some of us millennial guys were like, man, she is fine for an older woman. But Gen Xer dudes, Halle Berry that was they poster girl of their desires. Many of these Gen X dudes grew up with posters of Halle Berry. I remember my uncles having a picture of her when she was in that movie Boomerang with Eddie Murphy. She was like, I remember when she was dating the brother from Milwaukee, the singer, the dude that sings, because it was kind of talked about in Wisconsin at that time, because Halle Berry was dating the singer Eric Benet. That was his name. And he was from Milwaukee. So a lot of the Gen Xers grew up with Halle Berry, and they released that movie at a time when she was at her peak earnings in Hollywood. She ain't really made no money in the last 5 years. But at that time they released the movie, they were saying to you black men, even back then, that we can have the best of yours with the worst of ours. If Billy Bob was out here like us, he would be a Bottom-Shelf Brad. But he was with your most desired sister of Americana, the biracial Halle Berry. Light skin, team Creole. So they did that shit on purpose and gave her an Oscar for it. Just like they're trying to give that chick Cynthia Erivo, whoever played the Harriet Tubman in the movie, on some slave cosplay type stuff, in a movie that created like a black brute character that don't even exist in real life, never existed. They just made it up. Black girl magic feminist wrote the story, wrote the character, and then created like a slave cosplay movie about Harriet Tubman that didn't even exist. So they know what they're doing. And even though they disrespected the figure of Harriet Tubman, they're going to try to give the female that played Harriet Tubman an Oscar. So it didn't matter what they did to the image of black men in that movie. They pedestalized white slaveholders in that movie, and then they lowered the black male image to being a brutal rapist. So this all is typical. And that's why they did the Billy Bob movie with Halle Berry specifically. They wanted to like low-key let you know, hey, our Bottom-Shelf Brads can run through the best of your women. You think that she's your woman? She's not your woman. She was always our woman, and she remains our woman. And we'll actually go ahead and mock the most desired woman in your group and then kick her ass to the curb when we're done with her. And her whole life has went downhill ever since Monsters Ball and the Oscar. She married several white men, and everyone at this point has seen the court papers. She herself said that she was abused by these male men. She herself said she was called a nigger bitch by these male men, choked out by these male men. Go look at the divorce papers for Garcelle Beauvais and Halle Berry, and you tell me if you don't learn something. That's why I'm sitting back watching this whole Meghan Markle thing very closely. She's having a complete meltdown, and she's one of the few biracial women with black in her that actually reached the summit of Swirl Mountain. Ain't many that reached the summit. She reached the summit, and now she's on suicide watch over there in the UK right now. I mean, she's on like literal suicide watch as we speak. So I'm keeping an eye on that. And she made it to the pinnacle of Swirl Mountain. She received the 10 commandments from the mailman himself up there on Swirl Mountains on the top of it. But she's slowly about to tumble down to the graveyard too. So this is what we're dealing with, free thinking brothers. Don't ever let no one shame you about having a passport. Something that one of the first persons to ever receive a passport in America in 1815 was a black man named George Barker. They don't tell you that though. They don't say that one of the first Americans to ever receive a passport was a black American man, because at that time, the mailman didn't require a passport because he was the mailman. He was free to move around wherever he wanted to. But you as a free black man at that time, it was required that you have a passport issued to you by the United States of American government to move around in certain areas of the United States. But they don't tell you that when we talk about passport life, that you are one, the passport was created specifically for free black men at a time during the slavery, because if you didn't have that damn passport, you were designated as a slave. Now, isn't that ironic that still today, not having your passport, not having your ID is also a representative of your enslaved position here on the American plantation? It ain't changed that much, I guess, right? Don't let these people gaslight you into this race loyalty thing, man. So Rael said that women always introduce destruction to themselves. That's been evident throughout the history of the world. Man, that is so true. Because like in this case that we're talking about, the deputy in Orange County, she destroyed her own life just to get close to the male seed. But I actually think that if the reporter's story is true, she might have got the seed of this Nazi guy. And we talked about the Joshua Lee Burgess situation back in the summer, a dude who actually killed, raped, and cut the throat of his teenage biracial daughter. And then you all wonder why we keep bringing these stories out to tell you how deep this rabbit hole really goes. These women don't have a problem having the mailman seed. They don't care if he has mental issues. They expect it because they assume it's a default position. They assume, well, if he's messing with me, if he really had a lot going for himself and he was really desirable by white women and Asian women, it's going to be a hard drop for him to get to me. So most of these women assume that something's wrong with him and that he's been rejected in his dating pool. She's messing with him. And they're right most of the time. Doesn't mean it's true every time, but most of the time they're right, as in this case. So I don't know who was the more mentally disturbed, the Nazi getting him some easy pussy, even if it happened to be a sister of Americanda, or the Americandan queen of the damned who lowered herself to be with an incarcerated Nazi felon. I don't even know what to say, man. I don't know. I don't know what to say to this stuff, man. The stories, it just keeps getting worse and worse. I thought that Jason Roger Pope would be the peak for me and that I wouldn't hear no story like this for a while, but I was seriously wrong. There's hundreds of stories like this out there that are very, very quickly coming to the surface. So let me see some other things that the brothers were saying. The brother Chris the God says passport police should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, I don't think that they're capable of shame. I mean, they live in a gynocentric world. And again, that's one of the consequences of committing yourself to Deputy McClain's and Jason Roger Pope's harem. If you're committed to being the eunuch for the gynocracy, you can't have shame. That can't be in your repertoire. The ability to give a story based on objectivity and to talk about accountability, those are all things that the usual suspects cannot do and be a part of the eunuch initiative is what I call it. If you're going to be one of the Hotep communist drones, you can never hold the queen of the damned accountable. So that just is what it is. What's more important is not the slave patrols. What's more important is that you as an individual black man do what you got to do to have the freest and widest options to move around. That's what's more important. So I focus more on the positive than the negative. The eunuchs are going to do what eunuchs have always done, man. So the brother, Mr. Edward High, says, Gabriel Union did a movie about this topic with the Hawkeye dude. Wow, shit. I don't think I'm going to see that movie, bro. I don't even want to see nothing like that, man. After Monsters Ball, I mean, can it get any worse? Maybe that should be the first movie that the Black Manosphere creators make. The story of Jason Roger Pope. That'll be, I wonder how that would do in the theaters. But so Nutso says, once these whores play in the snow, stay in the snow. I mean, that is becoming something that I'm hearing a lot more thinking brothers saying as they educate themselves. But I honestly, Nutso, I don't think that your average Native American black man understood how deep this rabbit hole went. I know I didn't. I'm gonna be honest. I was so well programmed by my mother, my grandmother, and my aunts that it just never occurred to me that many American black women was chasing males. It never occurred to me, man. It's not something that was ever even on my radar, like seriously. But that's how deep the programming was. And that's what this journey for all of us is about, deprogramming ourselves. So Charles Merchant says, did you hear about the black American woman down in Georgia claiming to have been stalked by body snatchers, found out she lied? I heard about a story from Edward Anderson where he was talking about some chick down there in Georgia was claiming that she was missing, but it was a lie. So maybe that's the story you're talking about, Charles Merchant. But I did hear about that on Edward Anderson's channel. And it was a lie. And again, this is what I'm talking about. These women are destroying and doing so much damage to all the gains that Black American leadership had. The very few gains that they made since the 60s, they're just undermining all of it. So here you got a situation where a black woman is lying about being kidnapped and this and that. Every time a story like that happens, you just put 100,000 more Black American women's lives at risk. This is not talked about a lot, but one of the biggest groups of women missing in America is Black American women. I think they're number one for the missing women in America that go missing and never found. And this is why things like this are able to happen, because you have like these, that no one's checking the queens of the damned. No one's checking them. And then you have the pushing of the get the bag prostitution culture, where they're not teaching women to have any kind of ethical code or standards. So they put themselves in these dangerous situations where they do go missing. And then they're willing to lie. Anything to get the bag and get attention, right? So let me see. Young Sturt says, it never occurred to me either, but it would explain why us black men been expanding our dating, friendship, and sexual options. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That is the reason. I mean, it took me a long time to recognize how deep my programming was, man. Because I didn't know how deep it was, so I realized that actually my default position was that 99% of American black women didn't deal with male men. I actually believed that most of my life, man. But I got too much truth from the other brothers, man. After I started actually doing the research on the history and the, Loving versus Virginia, come to find out it was a Black American female and a male man that overturned the miscegenation laws, man, I started there, and it's just been going downhill and downhill. So as we build up these Survivor Series entries, you just find that graveyard, man, around Swirl Mountain, it has so many bodies, but it's not just the fact that these bodies have tumbled from the peak and the summit of Swirl Mountain. It's the background story on, man. It's the background and the bio on the cemetery. As we read each one of these stories, we're looking at a situation where the stories is just so Hollywood that you would have thought that only a Hollywood writer could write these true stories, but they're all true, man. So that's what this is about. Brothers having reference points. Reference points are important because as you're gaslighted, they can't gaslight the truth, bro. That's one thing you're noticing. You notice they go silent when we talk about the graveyard of Swirl Mountain. They go silent. They have to come up with something new every week, and they're running out of they don't have that kind of creativity where they can continue to invent things, right? They're running out of options, man. That's why you had the Democratic Party release I Love You Black Men. They're running out of stories, man, running out of narratives. So the brother Evan Duncan says, so I guess you haven't heard any stories about white men who know they have AIDS and go fuck thousands of women all over Africa. I had heard something about a story like that, but I have not investigated it quite yet. But now that you mention it, I'm gonna have to find some of those characters too and enter them into the series as well. So I'll definitely make note of the mailman spreading AIDS in Africa. I've mostly just been focused on American, the situation here in America, but I'll definitely look into some of those stories, Evan Duncan. So let me say, Omega Dread says, you know that Colt took their daughter in that movie. Yeah, I don't know which movies you're referring to. But I wouldn't be surprised because Jim Jones, man, again, I didn't know how deep the rabbit hole goes. Most of us black men did not know that most of Jim Jones' followers were black American women, and the majority of those women were single mothers. These are the kind of risks that they put themselves at. This is the kind of risk they put their children at. And these are the kind of risks that they put you and I. So you and I can't tell her, don't go with Jim Jones. He's going to make you drink the Kool-Aid down in that jungle. She will tell you, I'm going with this mailman. He's going to get me closer to God. And she, even when everyone has warned her, even when you as free-thinking brothers tell her, don't go with Jim Jones, you cannot come between her and that male savior man. Even the U.S. government tried to warn them, and they couldn't stop these women. So, I mean, when you're talking about that cult thing, you better look up that Jim Jones story, bro. I think the brother Brian Solange did a story on that not too long ago. But I knew about the Jim Jones story because I just happened to be reading about it. Because I was reading the book called Helter Skelter about the Charles Manson murders and all that stuff. And I learned about Jim Jones during that period of time. And I looked into it because I thought it was white people. But come to find out that the majority of his followers were actually black American women. Now explain to me how 1,000 American black women was down in the jungle with a retarded ass white supremacist named Jim Jones, banging them out, bringing their children by Native black men down there to drink Kool-Aid for some psychotic male man. You're going to have to explain that one. We're going to dig into that at some point in the future too, talking about that Jim Jones cult and how it was Native black American women that was the majority members of his cult. And that took their kids down there and that was getting their kids were getting smashed out and molested and pedophiled out by Charles Manson and his deacons or whatever. See, they don't talk to you about that though. We're gonna get into that in the future one of these days. So the brother Omega says, eyes wide shut was enough for me. Yeah, eyes wide shut is deep. Jay Jurassic, black women desire men who hate black people. That's why black women keep choosing Nazis and men like Tommy Sotomayor. I don't think that Tommy Sotomayor hates black people. But everyone has a right to their opinion. Pussy is overrated. Red Pill says, tribal black men have better success with women than traveling black women with other men. Oh, for sure. That's one of the reasons why they're so angry at the Native black American man, because he's able to successfully have these liaisons with women of all the different ethnicities. And it bothers her because it doesn't make sense. It's almost like in the gynocracy, it's the greatest crime that can happen, because it's not supposed to make sense that the freest woman, freest to express her sexuality, is the least desired, and that the man most restricted, the Native black American man, is the most restricted in his sexual movements, is still the most desirable based on his situation. That is a hell of a paradox for the black misandries. It's a paradox for them because they have the freest and least restricted sex lives, less restricted than white women, Asian, Latino, and biracial, the least judged for their sexual activity. In fact, they have whole terminology historically within the American context dealing with her free sexuality called the Jezebel and the Sapphire. They assume that she's a sex slave because that was what she was brought here to be from the very beginning, a sex slave. Shout out to BGS on sharing that history, that their sole purpose was actually not to pick cotton in the fields, and that was a lie, and that most of the early American black women's ancestors was brought here strictly for sex services, and that they telling a lie when they said that there was the real reason was to sit in the fields with black men. So that apparently was a myth. So let me say, let me see. Read a couple more of these comments before I go ahead and jet out of here. But I do appreciate y'all coming through. So let me see. So Dr. Phoenix, he says, they'll defend their pedo uncles, slutty mamas, sisters, and aunts, but got nothing but contempt for responsible black men. I mean, unfortunately, it's true. Because it just doesn't make any sense, man. It doesn't make any sense that you got a situation like this story with Tamara McClain having sex with a neo-Nazi under her security. I mean, you just can't make it up. Here's a accomplished Americandan woman, and she's sitting up here going to work every day while this dude is locked up and he's a member of the Nazi gang in that facility as well, and getting banged out with Nazi tattoos all over his body in the prison cell. He didn't have to take her to, I mean, damn, these sisters tell you, at least you got to take him to a motel. If it's a thinking brother, you at least got to take her to the Sheraton or the Hilton. They won't let you take him to no motel for the most part. But if it's a white pookie thug Nazi, he can bang her out in the fucking toilet, in the prison cell, in the commissary, wherever, because he's the mailman and he has a genetic diplomatic immunity again. So that's why they slut him out to Jason Roger Pope. That's why they give their daughters to Joe Morrissey. And that's why they're willing to even risk their whole careers to be with the Christopher Roger Brown skinheads. Because again, he is their savior. It's just that simple. So Johnny Mills says that, remember Gabrielle Union throw Nate Parker under the bus and karma came back at her. Yeah, Johnny Mills, that's crazy that she did throw Nate Parker under the bus, but now she just got booted from America's Most Talented or one of those little reality singing shows. She just got booted, and the first thing she did was claim racism. You see what I'm saying? This is the hoodwink man. So Gabrielle Union had no problem throwing Nate Parker under the bus with that Nat Turner movie over some allegations that he actually beat and that was never convicted of. No problem. She went into overtime helping to throw that man under the bus. Now, fast forward, and just this week, I'm reading in the news how she was, they kicked her off the show America's Got Talent or whatever. And then the first thing she claimed was racism. This is the game they play. Race loyalty for thee, race ambiguity for me. That's the game that they play. First thing she did was cry racism when she got kicked off. So Rael says, in 2014, saw an ex of mine and we talked for 30 minutes and she wouldn't look me in the face. And I asked her why, because she wouldn't. And tears started streaming. All that arrogance faded to black by the wall. Damn. Yeah, man. Yeah. The wall is undefeated, brother. Wall is undefeated. So I'll get a couple more. Let me see. Walter Wilder says there was a Dallas, Texas Klan leader who was kicked out of his group in 2005 when members found out that he had a black girlfriend living with him at his apartment. I mean, you know, see what it is, Walter, is that this is a head scratcher. I won't even lie. It's a head scratcher for many black men specifically. How can you be with a Nazi or a Ku Klux Klan member? Here's what you guys do not want to accept. See, those dudes are the ones that within their own dating pool, they cannot get the attractive white male woman. That's what you have to understand. So when these dudes find out, damn, these white male women and the Asian woman don't even want to be with me. And they see like some black woman who you and I might call like a 6 to an 8. And he's actually like less than a 4, and he's able, and she's throwing it at him like without even asking. That's how that shit works. So it's almost like you a dude that would be considered a white incel in any other market, but if you come into the non-white dating pool, that dude's at the top of the food chain in the eyes of many of those women. So that's why, you know, those things are happening, because those dudes that are in the bottom quarter of the white dating pool, can't get a white woman to look at him. He's so low on the sexual market value. But when it comes to the queens of the damn, she puts him on a straight up pedestal. He's automatically certified select. So you're gonna see even more of this shit being outed because these dudes don't like getting outed about what they're doing. They want to keep that shit behind closed doors. And that's how the dude that was the Klan leader, that's why he's upset, because they got caught because of the technology catches you up. Because remember, we already know that the queens of the damn, if they have any kind of intimate contact with the male man, they're going to put it out there in the public. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we're learning more about these stories, because these male men is the one putting it out there like, yo, I was not involved with her, or they'll try to, you know, explain it away. You know what I'm saying? I'm white and I say so type thing. But they got to go against those women that are dealing with them who are putting that shit on their social media. And they don't want their dirty laundry aired out. You see what I'm saying? Evan Duncan says, black women used to lay up with Klan members and get them to kill black men as well. So all those black men who died being hung wasn't because of only white women. Oh, for sure. That's another one of the myths of black history, where they tell this lie that, you know, all of it was because black men were looking at white women. Nah, there was a lot of Native Black American women who were laying up with the Ku Klux Klan and Nazis or whatever and snitching on black men and getting them killed. That was just like an excuse to lynch them over a white woman. But really, we already know now that a lot of these American women was laying up with the male man and snitching on them, telling them everything. If it was a Black Panthers, you had Black Panther type American women laying up with the Bull Connors of the world, telling them where the Black Panthers meeting was going to be at, telling them what their plans were, telling them who had the guns and where they was hidden. You know, during the Civil Rights Movement, you had a black woman that tried to kill Dr. Martin Luther King. No one talks about that. I forgot her name. She is allegedly was a CIA asset, but it was a black woman who tried to kill Dr. Martin Luther King. I mean, come on, man. Frederick Douglass, back when he finally got free and he could move around and choose the woman he wanted, he chose a white male woman that was half his age. And from that point on, a lot of Black American women tried to destroy his name and shit on his name throughout history, because when he got free and was able to choose without the male man telling him what he could and could not do, he chose the woman that he felt was best for him. And a lot of American Native Black women attacked him back in that day for that, for making the choice that he felt was best for him. So, you know, this is, you know, this may be new to us younger brothers, but it's a lot of older Black men that knew about it, but because they had that race loyalty, they tried to keep the truth away from us younger Black men because they have Black daughters. And I could understand it. It's a rational self-interest type of thing. They care more about their Black daughter's life and her being able to carry that shield and crest than they do about you and I's freedom and safety. So a lot of older Black men made the decision that to keep silent and not tell us younger Black men what's been going on. And luckily, this technology is the true elder. For as good as any elder Black man could be at sharing information, this technology is like the greatest friend I ever had, because it's the greatest teacher I ever had. It gives me all the information I need. All I need is the right search word, and I can begin that trip down the rabbit hole. I've kind of found that out. All you need is the right search word. So if you look up something like Daughters of the Trade, it's going to lead you to like all kinds of books. You know, I didn't know about the state of Ohio being like the white male worshiper central throughout history. Many towns in Ohio and many colleges were set up by the male man and his American concubine. A lot of people don't know that. I didn't know how deep that shit goes in the state of Ohio, as far as towns and universities that was set up since slavery, and all throughout every era, Jim Crow and everything still exists. But it's a whole deep history of the Black concubine in the state of Ohio. So, man, we're going to be talking about this shit for a long time. So with that said, I really appreciate everybody stopping through. I got some errands that I got to run. I might grab a couple more things for Black Friday, but I'm just happy getting my gym stuff. I found a real good pair of free trainers. There was $100 sitting in my cart. Today they was $50. I had to grab them. So with that said, you brothers have a great weekend. Don't trick off all your money this weekend. And like I said, December 1st is the beginning of cuffing season. And if Mei Ling hits you up, just remember this story that we talked about and go get it in. So peace. Talk to you all next time.